This is Colt. He's a very special whale. Why and how Colt has captured the hearts and imaginations of modern-day whalers across the northern Atlantic, we'll discuss in the fifth and last part of this video. For now, let's answer a more fundamental question, and that is, how do we know that Colt is Colt? How do we know that Colt is not salt, for example? If you were a marine biologist looking at this peacefully swimming whale, you would probably look at the shape and scarring of their dorsal fin to try and figure out who it is. You would be very lucky because Colt has a fairly recognizable shape of his dorsal fin and an unmistakable circular scar on his fin's right side. Salt's dorsal fin is very uniquely partly white. Thus, you would feel very happy that you knew it was in fact Colt you were looking at and not Salt. On the other hand, if you were not a marine biologist, you might think that this is the kind of salt I was talking about, and most of the time you would be right. For example, if I said the salt in the oceans comes from land, that is exactly what I would mean, and marine biologists among you are probably thinking to yourselves, well, all of the whales, including salt, also come from the land. About a third of a billion years ago, the first tetrapods, that's four-legged animals with a spine, pushed themselves out of the swamps and began living on land. Without this crucial evolutionary step in the becoming of the modern whale, the step that explains their skeletal structure and their breathing air, this video could never have been made. Not about whales as we know them at least. Especially so if we take into account that the hands we use to record or play these videos while breathing air is part of what makes us tetrapods as well. Being nourished as babies with our mother's milk is what makes us all also mammals. However, soon after the extinction of dinosaurs, other than birds, our evolutionary path started diverging from whales. While our ancestors remained on land about 50 million years ago, an animal about the size of a large pig that looked not too different from this marked the last time an ancestor of a whale walked the earth. In the region of the globe that is now Pakistan, this animal, scientifically called Pakicetus, but for the sake of our story we'll call her Paxi, would escape her predators by running into the water. Once Paxi found herself in the water, it didn't take her long to figure out that the food is bountiful there and the predators are scarce. If you live among bears, you might see them in the summer occasionally swimming through the water with their mouths open, while insects and small fish and animals in all of their abundance simply washing into their mouths. The only effort bears need to exert is to open their mouths while leisurely swimming through the water. If their food were so abundant throughout the year, and the competition for that food wasn't as fierce, the bears would find themselves in a similar predicament that our Paxi found herself in 50 million years ago. Generation by generation, all of Paxi's descendants kept spending ever greater and greater chunks of their lives in the water, and their ever-adopting bodies would allow them to do just that. Eventually, a baby was born that would never in her life set foot on solid ground. Since she didn't need feet on her way to becoming the modern whale, she transformed them over the period of millions of years into a tail and her front legs into flippers. That is why whales' flippers have the exact same skeletal structure as our arms and legs. Their nostrils moved to the top of their head, their bodies became streamlined to reduce drag while swimming, and they developed a powerful tail to propel them through water. Aside from being extremely strong and efficient, a humpback whale's tail in particular serves another, rather unexpected purpose. If you're lucky, as we mentioned before, you can identify a whale by their dorsal fin. However, an accident might change the size, shape, and scarring around the dorsal fin, but it cannot change the pattern on the underside of the whale's tail, even if part of the tail is cut off. A pattern that is as unique as your or my fingerprint. A pattern that once set about a year after birth does not change, ever. When I asked you at the beginning how do we know that Colt is Colt, although his dorsal fin can give us a pretty good answer, this, the pattern on the underside of his tail, gives us the right answer. We'll take a closer look at Colt later. For now, let's see what other animals we can take a look at around here. Dolphins and whales have a very useful relationship. Dolphins are hanging around whales for food, while whales are more likely to tolerate their company than to enjoy it. We, on the other hand, appreciate the company of dolphins, because if the whales are feeding nearby, their underwater feeding strategies will concentrate their food even at the surface. That will often attract dolphins, and they will in turn attract us. By following dolphins, we can know where the whales are before they surface. For us too, it's a very useful relationship. This is mola mola, or you might know it as ocean sunfish. It's named that because of its tendency to swim on its side while basking in the sun, like you can see here. Her flipper is protruding out of the water from the middle of the left side of her body. The adults can reach weights of over 2 tons, and they're the largest bony fish in the world. Only fish with cartilaginous skeletons can grow to be larger in size, most of whom are sharks, such as this one, a basking shark. This particular kind of a shark is a filter feeder, spending most of her summer with her mouth open in shallow water, collecting and filtering plankton. The great white shark we'll talk about in the next video, because the day we found a dead whale being eaten by a great white shark indeed does deserve a video of its own. The finback whale is the second largest animal ever to live on our planet, second only to the blue whale. They can grow to weigh over 100 tons and be around 85 feet long, almost as long as our boat. They're very fast, and once they dive, they can be miles away by the time they surface out of our sight, which makes it very hard for us to get a good look at them.
There's that flipper rolling over! Look at that! Both of them upside down! So cool! Synchronized swimming! Pretty cool!
What is that whale, Todd?
It is.
What was it?
I gotta think about it. Because I'm old.
Why are whales here? What is so special about Cape Cod that they hang around here for over 6 months every year? You would be correct if you thought to yourself, the bank, or more precisely, the Stellwagen Bank. That's the elevated plateau, deep only 100 feet, surrounded by a much deeper ocean. It covers an area of 800 square miles just north of Cape Cod. Because the ocean floor is closer to the sun here, that is where microscopic plants called phytoplankton live. They're responsible for 70% of our planet's oxygen production. When they bloom in the spring, they make the water green, which is also what makes whales' white flippers appear green. That blooming creates the first link in the food chain for almost all of the animals who migrate here for the summer. Zooplankton, that is microscopic animals, eat phytoplankton, small fish such as sand eels eat zooplankton, and whales in turn eat them. Food is what whales are here for. Although we will occasionally see other types of whales, finbacks that are too fast, minkies that are small, fast, less social, and less curious about humans, and northern right whales who leave too early in the season, the humpbacks are the ones we predominantly see on our trips. That's who we are talking about in this video. So, what makes humpback whales so special? You see this dive? It's called a fluking dive because you see a tail called a fluke. The reason you see it is because humpback whales, unlike most others, float in water, mostly because of all the fat called blubber that they have. Finback whales, for example, do not float in water and they need to exert effort to stay on the surface, while humpbacks, just like humans, need to exert effort to stay under the surface. And lifting their heavy tails high above water gives them an extra push to make their dives easier.
That's an impressive dive.
No other whales around here will show with any regularity their tails when diving. Unlike finbacks, the humpbacks do not travel as fast nor as far between their dives and are more social. In other words, once a humpback whale takes a dive, it will usually resurface nearby so we can easily see it and move our boat accordingly to take a better look.
Wow, this is incredible.
These small fish jumping out of the water everywhere are whales' food, and it is one of the primary reasons whales dive around here. Sometimes they would feed by only opening their mouth and letting their food simply wash into their mouth, much like that bear I described earlier, or a basking shark, while at other times they would employ specific strategies to concentrate their food. That often attracts dolphins and birds, and all of them attract us. One such strategy is blowing bubbles like these in a circular motion while deep underwater. That would trap small fish within that rising circular wall of bubbles, and then whales will swim up through that column of trapped small fish with their mouth open, collecting up to a half-ton of food in one pass. It's necessary for whales to eat with such efficiency, especially for pregnant females, because the journey they will undergo before they return here next year is a particularly grueling one. First, a pregnant whale mom will swim around 1,600 miles to another bank called Silver Bank just north of the Dominican Republic. She will spend her winter there, rearing her baby in the warm waters of the Caribbean. The upside of being so far south is the water is warm and whales don't need to expend energy to heat their bodies.
So mom is just right underneath her calf here.
The downside is that there is no food, so the mother is starving while producing hundreds of liters of milk for her calf every day. Come March, the mother and her child will begin their back journey here, and by the time she arrives, she will have lost about a third of her body weight. Over the course of the next several months, she will feed and keep nursing and teaching her calf how to feed and how to otherwise find its way around the sea.
Wherever these whales do get this close to us, we definitely take the boat out of gear. We like to make sure that we're not going to threaten these animals in any way. So we're not going to be able to move the boat around at all since this calf is so close to us. Again, mom is just underneath the calf.
One of the bodily features that has been streamlined over the millennia for the sake of whale swimming efficiency are the external teats. Instead, the way they nurse their young is through mammary glands that are located on their bellies. This baby swims on his mom's right side, and he will feed by diving underneath her and pressing his mouth against the mom's mammary slit. She will then release the milk directly into his mouth. He will then continue swimming underneath her and resurface on her other side. There he is on his mom's left side.
See where the calf comes up, left or right. Alright, see the calf's on the right now. See how it curls down and under? I think this little one is feeding. She's gonna go under mom, nudge her, see if she comes up on the left. See her coming up? Oh, amazing, this little one's feeding. She goes down, see how she curls in underneath mom? Nudges mom, there's mom just resting. Okay, yes, here she comes. Woo-hoo!
Over the course of the summer, the little whale will grow and feed, becoming ever more proficient at gathering food and ever more resilient to predators. While he wasn't able to lift his tail when diving when he first arrived, because of his developing buoyancy and skill, he will start raising his tail above water by the end of the summer. Once we know what the underside of calf's tail looks like, we'll know every subsequent year who that whale is, who his mother is, and how many children she has had. One of those mothers is named Equus, and one of her 6 children is named Colt. Equus in Latin means horse, and Colt means young male horse. We'll delve deeper into what makes Colt Colt right after we watch a little montage of whales slapping water for a couple of minutes, before we proceed to the 5th and last part of our video. This is Colt.
He's upside down.
He's not upside down, but he will be soon.
He's sunbathing. He's showing off. Look at this thing.
I think we're gonna get some whale breath eventually when he decides to.
Colt is 41 years old. He might be a father to many other whales. Most likely, he doesn't know. Like any males of his species, once he deposits his genetic material into a lady whale, his parental responsibilities are over. Nobody expects anything else from him. His life is much easier than the lives of females of his species. The whaling of the old days, when whales were killed by humans, is almost completely gone. It hasn't existed in this part of the world for decades. Colt knows this. That is why he's unafraid. When Colt's path brings him across the whale-watching boats of Stellwagen Bank, we, the modern whalers of the Northeast, take note. His uncanny interest in people watching is of particular interest to people who want to watch him, because that is when our whale-watching experience, much like Colt's people-watching experience, gets real up close and personal. There are many more flamboyant and dashing surface behaviors that Colt doesn't engage in all too often. The behaviors that our little montage has demonstrated a couple of minutes ago before we started this last part of our video. Behaviors such as full body breaching, chin breaching, tail breaching, tail lobbing, and flipper slapping. Why do whales do it? We don't know for sure. Sometimes they do it to stun the fish before they eat it. Other times they might do it to communicate, or for fun, or to get rid of barnacles, or to express emotions, positive or negative. There is another rare behavior that very few whales engage in, and that is close boat approaches. Unlike all those other behaviors I just mentioned, we know what motivates this one: curiosity. That is why Colt is a very special whale.
Hanging out. Way worth it.
He's rolling over, you guys.
Yeah, he is.
There it is. He's rolling over.
He's on his belly.
Upside down. He's completely on his back. Oh my goodness. See his flipper? It's gonna come up. He must be rubbing his chin on the boat or something.
Why has Colt captured the hearts and imaginations of modern-day whalers of the Northern Atlantic, you ask? It's certainly not because he exhibits a rare behavior around humans. Other whales do that too. It's that he exhibits it with uncanny reliability. One might even say persistence.
Yes, we can also learn about a lot of behavioral idiosyncrasies of these animals. This particular male, pretty well known after 4 decades to be willing to come really close to boats. Hard to say if it's genuine curiosity or
How you doing, D? Don't
just a male propensity towards recklessness. It's a fine line of distinction.
Why is Colt Colt? Now that is a difficult question to answer. Some of us don't even know how to answer that about ourselves. Whether it's a scientific or philosophical dilemma, that I leave up to you. It's a general belief in certain parts of Cape Cod Marine Society that there is something missing in that wonderful big brain of Colt's. And perhaps that is why, alongside with his extraordinary curiosity, that many of us are captivated by him so much because he reminds us, at least in some regard, of ourselves.